Hello friends, welcome to the channel Vales and Tales. Today we will discuss a novel titled When the Kurinji Blooms, which was published in English language in 2002, and this novel is originally published in Tamil as Kurinjithan in 1963, and it is written by Rajam Krishnan. So this novel was translated into English by Oma Narayana and Prema Sitharam, and that got published in 2002. So originally published in 1963 in Tamil, and in English it is published in 2002. Now, what is Kurinji? What is special about this Kurinji flower? Actually, this Neel Kurinji is a unique flowering shrub that blooms once every 12 years. And the matter of the concern is for today that this flower is being listed as vulnerable species by the IUCN Red List. So the novel was originally written in 1963. Then the phenomena of Kurinji blooming was evident. But still, Rajam Krishnan was a far-sighted author who has actually talked about how the contemporary changes, how the development, modernization, and the arrival of corporates, different developmental projects like construction of dams, roads, is impacting the landscape and of course the people, their lives. So this forms the crux of this novel. Now let's see the writer. Rajam Krishnan, this is her time period. She was born in 1925 and died in 2014. She was born in Tamil Nadu. She got married before she completed high school. So she wrote her first novel, which is called Swatantra Jyoti in 1948. And she's a prolific and versatile writer. She has written plays, fiction, essays, biographies, short stories, and travelogue. So her writing is bold but lyrical, and her feminist perspective and socialist ideology are tempered by deep humanism. So you will see that how she interweaved the feminist perspective, the socialist ideology within a broader term called deep humanism. So she has won many national and international accolades, wherein Sahitya Akademi Award was bestowed upon her in 1973 for her novel Verukunir, and the Soviet Land Nehru Award in 1975 for her work Vailekaram, Wrist with Bangles, which was translated into English as Wrist with Bangles. Now, her works have been extensively translated into other Indian languages and also nationalized by the government of Tamil Nadu. Now, regarding the title of this novel, many a times you are being asked the question to justify a novel, justify the title of the novel. So if we talk about this title, When the Kurinji Blooms, the novel talks about the saga of 3 generations of Badagas. Badagas is actually the tribe, spanning 50 years of their lives. Now it begins with the Badagas leading a tranquil and contented life at a time when the Nilgiri hillsides were covered with Kurinji flowers. So how this union between nature and the tribals is being disrupted. In the beginning of the novel, the people are living in harmony. But this novel, when it ends with the advent of hydroelectric power project in the Nilgiri. So this is taken from the book itself. It is a translator's note that this book revolves around the life of Badagas tribes, and when it begins, they are living in harmony with nature. They are living a very tranquil and contented life. But this novel, it ends with the advent of hydroelectric project and how it has devastated not only the landscape but also the lives of Badagas there. Now, when the Kurinji bloomed, so because the title itself says that when the Kurinji blooms, so what used to happen when the Kurinji blooms, okay? And now the Kurinji doesn't bloom, so what is happening? This is how she has, this is how she has highlighted in the novel that the changes that has happened and the life that used to be when Kurinji used to bloom. So as it is said that when the Kurinji bloomed, the hills breathed in unison with the Badaga people and life unfolded in quiet harmony where nature and community were inseparable. So the rare flowering marked not just a season but a time of unity, simplicity and mutual care, untouched by greed or division. Now, in contrast, the present silence of the Kurinji doesn't bloom. So, when the novel ended, the characters, the third generation of Badaga tribes, are saying that they have never seen Kurinji. So, they have never seen Kurinji. Moreover, they have never seen the union between humans and the nature, and they have never seen the unity and harmony that used to be between the people. So, the silence of the Kurinji becomes a powerful reminder of disruption, its absence mirroring the fractures within both land and life. With the advent of modernity, colonization, and the commercialization of agriculture, the sacred rhythm of the hills has been disturbed, replaced by construction, hydroelectric project, and the steady influx of outsiders. So now Kurinji doesn't bloom. Now the blooming is replaced by the construction, hydroelectric projects, and the influx of outsiders. So over 3 generations, the Badaga community witnesses the shift as cooperation gives way to competition, contentment gives way to conflict, where once there was no space for animosity or violence, but now there is. So the migration from the hills further loosens their bond with the land. People start migrating from hills to plains, which erodes traditions that once flourished alongside with the Kurinji. Thus, the unblooming of the Kurinji stands as a poignant metaphor for the loss of ecological balance and the disintegration of a once harmonious tribal existence. So, this is how she is juxtaposing the lives of the tribals when Kurinji used to bloom and now when the blooming is being silenced. So, the novel, important thing that you have to remember before we analyze this novel, that when the Kurinji blooms, critiques modernity through ecological loss. Kurinji is being presented as a metaphor for civilizational imbalance. That now Kurinji doesn't bloom. It is because of the civilizational imbalance. It is because of the imbalance between nature and humans. It is because of the disruption of the ecological system. And what has disrupted the ecological system? Development. So there is development versus displacement debate in the novel. And if you talk about the historical context of the novel, it is set in the post-independent India, and it has also talked about the pre-colonial times, but certainly mentioned colonialism. And rather majorly, this novel can be read as a development discourse. If we talk about the structure of the novel is divided into 5 parts. Part 1 has 9 chapters, Part 2 has 10 chapters, Part 3 has 9, Part 4 has 10, and Part 5 has 9. This novel ends with the epilogue, which begins after 3 years of the ending of the novel. That what happens to the Badagas after 3 years. If I talk about Part 1, then Part 1 introduces us to the major characters. We have Jogi. He is a lover of nature. When the novel opens, he is only 9 years old. Then we have Rangan, his cousin. He is motherless, he is broken, he is sad, and he desires to escape Hatti. Hatti is the Margathamalai, the place where they are living. We are introduced to Krishnan. He is a wealthy and intelligent. We are also introduced to Paro, who is an innocent girl. We are introduced to Rangi. She is sister of Rangan. Now, in the part 1, we are introduced to the history of Badagas, that how they migrated from Mysore to Nilgiris. We are also told about the divine ancestor whom Badagas worship, that is divine Hithapa. And we have seen that how there is migration of people from Margathamalai to Othai, and the first person who migrates to Othai is Rangan. Now, the another generation, that is first generation people, because they are the fathers of Jogi and Rangan. They are the stepbrothers, Lingaya and Madan. So Jogi is the son of Lingaya and Rangan is the son of Madan. In the novel, we are informed that there is an elder, Karyamala. He is grandfather of Krishnan. He desired that Jogi should tend fire in the temple of Hethappa. But Lingaya recommends Rangan, because he wants that if Rangan would tend fire in the temple, then all the offerings that are being collected in the temple will help Rangan and his brother's family Madan, because Madan does nothing. Nevertheless, this plan backfired, as Rangan, when he got to know that he is being introduced to the temple, he is being sent to the temple as a priest, he escapes to Othai and started working there. So, because Rangan is no longer there, now Jogi performed the milking ceremony and he joins as priest in Hiriyar temple. However, Lingaya held himself responsible for the escape of Rangan to Othai, oblivion of the fact that Rangan always wanted to go away from the village. This is all about part 1. Now in part 2 opens after one Kurinji span. That is, part 2 opens after 12 years. Now what has changed after 12 years? After 12 years, Krishnan returns after completing his studies and resolves to change Hatti. He falls in love with Paru, and Rangan, who is in Othai, he turned into a very shrewd man. And Bhiman, who is the brother of Paro, he met Rangan in Othai and is asked by Rangan for Paro's hand, oblivion of the fact that Krishnan and Paro are in love with each other. So after 12 years, Jogi left temple, and now there is a competition that who will be the husband of Paro. So the competition happens amongst Jogi, Krishnan and Rangan. What Jogi did, that Jogi knows about the love of Krishnan and Paro, so he deliberately lost the competition, thinking that Krishnan will win, but Krishnan also lost and Rangan won the competition. So Rangan not only won the competition, but he also won Paru. And also he is aware that Krishnan loves Paru and Paru loves Krishnan, but still, in order to win over Krishnan, he thought it is better to marry Paru, so that in this way he can won Krishnan, because he was always in competition with Krishnan. Krishnan is a wealthy person, Krishnan is a more intellectual, he's an intelligent fellow, he's kind fellow rather, who is bringing development to Hatti, but Rangan is a greedy person. He's always in competition with Jogi and Krishnan. So when he got to know that Krishnan loves Paru, so he thought it's the best way to avenge Krishnan by marrying Paru, and so he won the competition and he marries Paru. Now part 3. Part 3 again begins after another Kurinji span, that is after 12 years. Now what happened in part 3? What is happening in part 3? In part 3 we are shown that Lingaya, the father of Jogi, he felt unconscious because of the fire walking festival. He was walking on the fire, he felt unconscious. And we are also told here the development in the lives of the characters, that Krishna, now he is a lawyer in Othai, he is married, his wife is Rukmani, he has a son whose name is Gopalan and a daughter. We are also told that Rangan, who is a shrewd man, has now become a gambler. He has illicit relations with another woman called Gauri, and with Paru as a wife he has 2 daughters. So Jogi is also married, he has no children, he has no child, and he is married to Girijai, and Jogi and Girijai are living a very poor life, poverty stricken life. So also developmental changes in Hatti that are being carried by Krishnan in the form of the development of roads, schools, cultivation of somai, ragi and potatoes and tea is being shown. The changes that are being brought by Krishnan to Margathamalai. So Lingaya in this part died because he suffered a lot in fire walking festival, and also psychologically he was suffering. Lingaya died after lending money to Rangan. And why Rangan came here to borrow money? Because he is under huge debt, as we know that he is a gambler, so he is under huge debt. And but now Jogi has no money to perform last rites of his father. So also in this part we are told that there are non-tribals, they have arrived there, and there is subsequent deterioration of law and order in the Hatti. Plague broke out in Hatti and it has subsequently killed so many people. It has killed all the 2 daughters of Rangan and Gauri. It has killed 2 children of Rangamai, that is Rangan's sister. So also we are told that it is due to the arrival of the non-tribals and due to the developmental activities, the folk culture is diminishing. So there is one culture called Kothar culture. They have there is Kothar tribe that used to dance and sing. It has disappeared altogether. And Paro gives permission to Rangan that you can marry Gauri, because she is heartbroken, she is sad, she has lost her 2 daughters, so she is, and she knows about Gauri also, Gauri and Rangan, so she allowed Rangan to marry Gauri. And the part 3 ended with Girijai, that is wife of Jogi, death, and how she died. She died in childbirth after giving birth to a son whose name is Nanjan. So this is all about part 3. Now part 4, we are shown the changes that have happened in terms of forest lands, because they are now being cultivated fields and the hill slopes are covered with lush green tea bushes. Not one single Kurinji to be seen now. So part 4 is showing us that the Kurinji doesn't bloom now. So there is influx of tea estate landowners, tea factories spewing smokes. Younger generation no longer tills soil. Younger generation is moving to Kunur town, to Othai. And Nanjan, who is brought up by Paro. Krishna spearheaded independent movement. So there is pitiable condition of workers in Rangan's tea estate. Paro sells her land so that Nanjan's school can be extended, much to the dismay of Rangan. So Paro sells her land to Nanjan's school because they wanted to extend the building of the school so that they can have higher classes there. So she gives her land because she wants Nanjan to study, and much to the dismay of Rangan. Rangan doesn't like it. Also in part 4, we will see that after giving land to the school, Paro meets Krishnan to ask for some land, but she is attacked by Lingan. Who is Lingan? Lingan is Rangan's eldest son. Jogi despised and critiqued developmental changes that are resulting into vengeance, animosity and fights. So Jogi decided to go to Mukammadai, and Mukammadai is his mama's place. So Paro also joined him and Nanjan. And Nanjan saw a girl, Vijaya, in Magathamalai, who turns out to be Krishnan's granddaughter. And this character will play another important role in part 5, remember it. So, hydroelectric power project started on Kumari River. Rangan lost elections and stops sponsoring Nanjan's education. And why Rangan, first and foremost, why Rangan decided to contest for elections? Because he got the news that Krishnan is fighting elections, Krishnan is contesting elections, so that is why he contest elections. He spent so much money, but before elections Krishnan withdraw his name, much to the dismay of Rangan. So nevertheless, Rangan, because he lost all the wealth, so he stopped sponsoring Nanjan's education. Nanjan is the son of Girijai and Jogi, who is being brought up by Paru. Now, this education is being taken care by Raman. Raman is Rangamai's son, but it is not actually Raman or Rangamai's son who is taking care of education. He is in turn helped by Krishnan. We know Krishnan, the wealthy, intellectual man, the advocate, the sensible man who is also bringing out developmental changes in Hatti. And why he is sponsoring Nanjan's education? Because he has some other big plans that will be revealed in part 5. Now in part 4, Rangan lost his wealth. He becomes an addict. He is living a very bad life, sad life, rather broken life. Moreover, we have also Jogi and Paro who are also living a very pitiable condition because a drought has affected their life, a drought has affected their agriculture. Now part 5, which is the last part of this novel, we will see Nanjan. Nanjan is a grown-up man. He meets Vijaya after many years. So Kurinji stopped blooming. Nanjan has never seen Kurinji bloom. Now Nanjan gets job in tunnel digging section of the hydroelectric power project. So Jogi raged against it. He is against this project because he regards this act as ravaging Mother Earth and calls Nanjan a traitor. Paro wants Nanjan to marry Devki, Raman's daughter, but Nanjan wants to marry Vijaya, and Krishnan is also happy with his relation as it will end long-term feud. This is the reason why Krishnan has sponsored Nanjan's education, because he wants to make him an intellect and he wants to make him a responsible person. He wants to make him a successful person so that he can marry Vijaya, and this marriage will end the long-term feud between the families of Jogi and Krishnan, rather amongst the families of Jogi, Krishnan and Rangan. So in part 5, we will see a violent conflict between the management and the workers at dam site, and this violent conflict is fueled by Rangan only because he doesn't want any kind of development. He is himself suffering, so he wants every other person to suffer. Now Rangan fueled this protest but got shot and died. So he died, and the novel ended with this quote that quivering deaths were clasped in the presence of death and enmity is forgotten. So everyone forgot the enmity that exists in these three friends since the beginning. So the three generations that are being talked about in this novel, the first is the older generation, that is Lingaya and Lingya and Madan, Kariyamala. These are the older generation. Then we have middle generation, that is Jogi, Rangan, Krishnan, Paru, and at last the third generation is represented by Nanjan, Vijaya, Devki. So this is all about the structure of the novel. This is all about the analysis of the novel. And what is in the epilogue? So the epilogue begins 3 years later. The narrative reaches its resolution. Nanjan is now married to Vijaya, signifying personal and social consolidation. Devki is married to Krishnan's nephew, reflecting the continuation of family alliances. And Paru passed away after establishing her own potato patch, which was her dream, on Krishnan's land, symbolizing her enduring connection to the soil. The Kumari Dam has become fully functional. This is important. This functionality of Kumari Dam marks the triumph of development and transformation over the landscape. Now the Kurinji doesn't bloom, but what is blooming there? The developmental work, developmental projects. So major characters, you can always divide the major characters in three categories. The first category is the elder generation, who were the kind of custodians of traditions. But here also there is an exception, that is Krishnan. And the elder generation, they represent the pre-modern harmonious phase. They are deeply connected with land, rituals, and Kurinji cycles. They symbolize particularly Lingaya. They symbolize collective identity and ecological wisdom. They resist or remain untouched by early external influences. Lingaya, Kariyamala, they are untouched by external forces. Madan. So they are representing the pre-modern harmonious phase. We will not include Krishnan here because he is in the second generation, he is the middle generation. So the elder generation is living in harmony. Okay, this is how you can juxtapose the characters. Now the second generation, who will bring the development. Here we will see Krishnan. So the middle generation, transitional figures, witness the entry of colonial and modern forces, torn between traditions and adaptation. Krishnan, Rangan, Jogi. Here Jogi is the exception here because he is torn between tradition and adaptation. He is not adapting at all. Okay, so began engaging with commercial agriculture and external economy, and it embodied conflict, confusion, and negotiation. So conflict can be seen in the form of in the characters like Rangan and Krishnan, and Jogi is negotiating the things that are happening, but still it is difficult for him to accept and to embrace development. However, Krishnan and Rangan are bringing these developmental changes, and there is not only the conflict between nature and humans, but also conflict within humans only. Like Krishnan versus Rangan, they hate each other. And the younger generation, who were the agents of change, fully exposed to modernity and its consequences, like Nanjan. And they are experiencing migration, they are educated outside the hills, they have individual ambitions, they represent fragmentation of community values, and they are more prone to competition, alienation, and identity crisis. So there we have women characters as well, who are closely tied to land, home, and continuity of culture, represented by Paru, Girijai, Rangamai, sister of Rangan, and they experience the deepest impact of change. They act as silent sufferers, carriers of memory and tradition, particularly Paru. So their lives reflect parallel exploitation of women and nature. So talking about the importance of the characters, all the characters are not just individuals but embodiments of historical forces. There is a shift from community to individuality, which is central. Their transformation parallels the shift from blooming to unblooming Kurinji. So how the characters, how the elder generation and the middle generation, then the younger generation, they are reflecting these changes from community to individuality. So the themes that you can always explore and expand, it is how the novel represented the harmony between nature and indigenous life through the first generation characters, and how there is disruption of ecological balance through the second generation characters, and there is critique of modernity and development, that how the novel ended with the functioning of hydroelectric power project but the unblooming of Kurinji flowers, because the development has disrupted that ecological balance. Of course, there is a generational conflict, tradition versus change. There is disintegration of community life. The development has not only disintegrated the nature, but it has also disintegrated the community life. Now there is animosity, there is vengeance, there is hatred amongst the tribals. So, of course, there is a subtle reference to colonial and external influence, as we are told that how in Othai there is modernity which is brought by the Westerners, by the Britishers, and how they are being attracted, how the tribals are being attracted by this modernity, and they are bringing it back to their own villages. There is migration and loss of rootedness. There is an important theme of memory, time, and loss. So they are losing their old bonds, they are losing their old friendships, they are losing the harmony and the balance between nature and humans. So this novel is a powerful meditation on how ecological imbalance leads to cultural and emotional disintegration, which is very important, that when we are disrupting nature, we are not only disrupting a resource, we are also disrupting human relations, we are also disrupting human oneness, we are also disrupting humanity as a whole. So ecological imbalance always leads to cultural and emotional disintegration. We have to understand this thing. So this is all about When the Kurinji Blooms, a very powerful work that is mostly in the course tribal literature. Thank you so much.